Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Momentum. This is a daily compendium of local and international news, human interest stories, current affairs, and expert opinion. Today being Thursday, 4th of July, 2024. My name is Alfonsoh, and definitely we are taking up the airwaves right here on the best used television network in East and Central Africa, Younib TV. Let's take a look at the top stories making the headlines this morning. We start with the Standard. Senate to Ruto, rid yourself of excess baggage. Now, senators, while debating the state of the nation, told the president that for him to ride out the protests, storm, he needs to fire the cabinet and advisors, drop the CAS idea, and disband unconstitutional offices. More of that story is beefed up for you on page 4 of the Standard this morning. Definitely we have sentiments here from different senators. Let's sample one by Senator Edwin Sifuna, and I quote, "I'm calling for an audit for all cases that have been withdrawn by the Director of Public Prosecutions," end of quote. All right, let's take a look at page 5. Azimio demands snap elections for errant MPs, and on page 10, judiciary fast to feel heat of the trimmed budget. On page 6 of the Standard this morning, it's all about no pay rise for MPs. Now, government officials yesterday fell over themselves to deny any role in a salary increase notice for elected leaders, with the executive and other senior members saying the timing is not right as budgets are being trimmed. That story is beefed up for you on page 6. On page 22, court asks for more witnesses in Mandago case. And on international news, 120,000 babies stolen in Georgia. In business news, AG flags shady deals in Kenya aviation, or KAA audit, that is. That story is beefed up for you on page 18 of the Standard this morning. Let's get up close with the Standard and take a look at page 2. From Mombasa to Kisumu, towns count losses of Tuesday's protests. Now, some looters were nabbed by genuine protesters, handed to police, and later taken to court. In Mombasa, 23 people suspected to be goons masquerading as protesters were arrested. You want to catch up with that story on page 2 of the Standard this morning. On page 3, traders, we lost 5 billion shillings to protests, not again. Now, Nairobi CBD chair Wilfred Kamau said they will defend their property from looting. A market insights firm said following the protests, the shilling is down by 0.29%. That story is also beefed up for you on page 3 of the Standard this morning. Let's take a look at page 4. Dissolve cabinet and sack corrupt public officials, Senate tells Ruto. Now, senators say country is in a crisis because Kenyans are angry. They pledge to ensure the country gets back on right track. That story is beefed up for you on page 4. This follows the debate that the Senate had yesterday on the state of the nation. On page 5 of the Standard this morning, Kalonzo to Ruto, set up IEBC and call snap polls. Wiper leader says Kenyans have shown their lack of faith in government. Azimio also warns its members to toe the line at the risk of being recalled. That story is beefed up for you on page 5 of the Standard this morning. On page 6, political leaders reject Salaries and Remuneration Commission salary increase. Public outrage. Now, the pay rise comes few days after the president announced austerity measures to reduce expenditure by 346 billion shillings. The government, opposition, lawmakers, as well as senior government functionalities united to say the move is a setup. That story is beefed up for you on page 6 of the Standard this morning. Let's move on swiftly and take a look at more stories on page 11. Uncertain fate of junior secondary school teachers, money used to affect learning. With anticipated budget cut, fate of over 46,000 intern teachers due to be confirmed in hanging the balance. Schools are also facing financial crisis occasioned by government delays in releasing funds. All right, in numbers, 18 billion shillings is the money allocated for employment for intern teachers starting this month. TSC had planned to absorb the interns on permanent and pensionable terms in January 2025, but MPs in May pushed for their confirmation to happen sooner. That story is beefed up for you on page 11 of the Standard this morning. All right, let's move on and take a look at page 12. Court tells Senate to produce more witnesses in Finland case against Jackson Mandago. Now, only 4 people have testified out of a list of 202. The hearing has been adjourned to July 22nd. On page 13 of the Standard this morning, no end in sight to Puko Ranch, whose locals want trustees fired. Now, members say ranch resources are being mismanaged and used for personal gain. They have also cited illegal leasing of the land to outsiders for agricultural purposes. That story is beefed up for you on page 13 of the Standard this morning. Let's take a look at page 14, and that lands us to expert opinion. Now, do we need a team to discuss Gen Z's grievances? We start with Damaris Chalo, who says no, and her sentiments are that that is the best route to peace and order. On the contrary, Isaiah Ochilo says yes, because that will be a waste of time and resources. All right. Let's move on and take a look at page 17, lawmaking. This is still expert opinion. MPs should keenly listen to voters before passing bills. Now, despite the opposition going down on all fours, the Finance Bill 2024 sailed through Parliament faster than light could travel. The ruling party has often mobilized its House numerical strength to overcome the opposition whenever it needs to pass a bill. You want to catch up with more of those expert opinions on page 16 and 17 of the Standard this morning. Let's shift gears and take a look at business news on page 18. Auditor General flags shady dealings at KAA in latest audit. Now, among the issues that raise eyebrows are payments for the botched Greenfield Terminal project, which saw taxpayers lose billions of shillings. The authority is also in the spotlight for failure to collect a debt of 6.4 billion shillings owed by Kenya Airways. Now, in numbers, 4.7 billion shillings is what the taxpayers will pay for in extra cost for the cancellation of the contract for the construction of a second terminal at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Let's take a look at business in the tech field. Is drone industry laws a regulator urged? Now, Kenya's Civil Aviation Authority has been urged to create an enabling environment for growth of the drone industry through easing regulations. Speaking during the 2-day Elevate Africa Unmanned Aircraft Systems Summit in Nairobi, players in the sector said, for instance, the beyond visual line of sight, a term used to describe flights where the drone is operated beyond the direct line of sight of the pilot, has denied them opportunities to benefit more from the sector. More of those insights are beefed up for you on page 18. Now, with that, we shift gears and take a look at the international scene. 120,000 stolen babies. Georgia's trafficking scandal uncovered. Now, some of the illegal adoptions took place more than 50 years, orchestrated by a network of maternity hospitals. In Georgia, new parents would pay the equivalent of many months' salary to arrange the adoption. All right, in South Africa, new unity government inaugurated. South Africa's new unity government under President Cyril Ramaphosa began sworning in during a televised ceremony in Cape Town, lowing weeks of coalition hanging. You want to catch up with more of those insights on page 22. Let's move to Asia. Terror and chaos as India stampede kills over 120. Now, Survivors of India's deadliest stampede in more than a decade recalled on Wednesday the horror of being crushed at a vastly overcrowded Hindu religious gathering where 121 people were killed. A police report said more than 250,000 people attended the event in northern India's Uttar Pradesh state, more than triple the 80,000 for whom organizers had permission. That story is beefed up for you on page 23. The real estate enthusiasts, you have it beefed up for you, and today it's all about kiosks hold ground in expansion spree by supermarkets. That story is beefed up for you on the real estate article. Now it's time for some sporting action on the Standard this morning, and let's see what we have here. I made it. Thai 12-year-old fulfills her Olympic Games dream. Now, Sukasem will be representing Thailand in skateboarding at the Paris Olympics. She will be one of the youngest athletes who will compete at the Olympics. That story is beefed up for you on page 37. On page 38, Malkia strikers serve off against Puerto Rico in Challenger Cup. Now, Kenyans will be battling for a slot at 2025 FIVB Women's Volleyball Nations League. Coach Munala will select his final Olympic squad after the show in Manila. That story is beefed up for you on page 38. On page 39, it's all about the Euro 2024. England want to have a second bite at the cherry. Now, England topped Group C with 5 points and will play Switzerland on Saturday. Few of the traditional big hitters have managed to find their form at the Euros. That story is beefed up for you on page 39. On the cover page of the Standard this morning, Spain can't tumble and fall as Euro 2024 heads into quarters. Turkey set up Euros quarterfinal date with the Netherlands tomorrow. Euros has brought together some of the best footballers on the planet. All right, with that story of Euro 2024, we take a quick break right here on the Morning Momentum, and then we come back with the top stories making the headlines on the Daily Nation. See you on the other side of this broadcast.
Je, wewe ni mfanyabiashara katika sekta ya elimu, afya bora, usafiri ama unamiliki kampuni yoyote ile? Ungependa kupata fursa ya kutangaza biashara yako ili kuwafikia wateja zaidi? Usikonde. Runinga ya Younib inakupa fursa ya kupeperusha matangazo kuhusu bidhaa na huduma unazotoa kwa bei nafuu. Kwa maelezo zaidi, wasiliana nasi kupitia nambari za simu 0750344700 ama kupitia barua pepe marketing@younibtv.com. Jinyakulie leo. Younib TV, ever the best.
Welcome back to the Morning Momentum. If you're just joining us, you are rolling with the host with the most right here on Younib TV. Let's take a look at the Daily Nation this morning. Jitters as Ruto cabinet purge looms. Now, keen to assuage widespread disaffection among the youth who have taken the country hostage with mass demonstrations, President William Ruto is said to be planning a major shake-up of his executive in a move that will see some ministers and PSS moved or sent packing. That story is beefed up for you on page 4 and page 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. Definitely anxiety has gripped top officials in both executive and parliament. Now, let's take a look at page 6 and page 7, how goons infiltrated youth protests. Now, some of the goons who looted Chieni supermarket in Nyeri town walked away with a smart TV set after the retailer was broken into during anti-government protests on June 25th. On page 3, why some MPs fear visit to constituents. The short recess for members of parliament, which started last week and runs to July 22nd, is turning out to be one of a kind, especially for lawmakers who voted in favor of the Finance Bill 2024 that has been withdrawn. That story is beefed up for you on page 3. On the cover page of the Daily Nation this morning, why President stopped pay rise for state officers. President Ruto has bowed to public pressure and directed the Treasury to review a Gazette notice that had increased salaries of CSS MPs, governors, MCS and other top state officers with effect from July 1st. All right, let's get up close and candid with the Daily Nation. On page 2, buyers. Shanti factory as sex abuse suspect wins KTDA director election. Chebochok, in his acceptance speech, did not address the dark clouds that have surrounded his candidature. 2 multinationals have suspended buying their tea from the Tegat Toror Tea Factory. That story is beefed up for you on page 2 of the Daily Nation this morning. On page 3, moment of reckoning as ground shifts for MPs who backed bill. President praised them as heroes, but critics branded them sellouts. Lawmakers uncharacteristically keep off events in their constituencies to avoid incurring voters' wrath. That story is beefed up for you on page 3 of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's take a look at page 4. Jitters in cabinet amid reports of purge and reshuffle. It was not clear if the president will consult his deputy in making the changes, even as it emerged that Gachagua has not made any appearance at State House for the past 2 weeks amid escalating political strife. President keen to assuage widespread disaffection among the youth who have taken the country hostage with mass protests. That story is beefed up for you on page 4 and page 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's take a look at page 6. How goons turned peaceful protests to bloody spectacle. A movement characterized by smartphone-wielding youths taking to the streets and live recording the unfolding scenes was turning into a dangerous affair. There was something terrifying about some of the faces in the protests. They looked fishy, weird, menacing, and they were not Gen Zs that Brenda had come to join. You want to catch up with more of those stories on page 6 and page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning to get insights of how the peaceful protests was infiltrated by goons. Let's move on and take a look at page 12. Aga Khan in the world's top 100 list for advancing SDGs. Now, ranking shows commitment to excellence, quality, and healthcare. Leading universities' contribution to good health and well-being receives recognition, and you want to catch up with more of those insights on page 12 of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's move on and take a look at page 14. Centuries-old fort, the pride of Old Lamu. The town was recognized by UNESCO in 2001 due to its reservoir and unique and well-preserved culture. The social hall in the building hosts weddings, graduations, and other events. All right, let's move on and take a look at expert opinion. Beyond credit, we need novel solutions for MSMEs. Now, technology today plays a pivotal role in the provision of innovative financial services. That opinion is augmented for you on page 16 of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's move on and take a look at county news now. And let's take a look. Farmers loud bill as magic bullet for ailing Ken sector. National Assembly and Senate give proposed law the green light. Sugarcane growers from Nyando and Kericho sugar belts say it will turn around their fortunes. All right, let's stay a little bit on page 19. Counties delay in remitting staff cash alarms NSSF. Now, the National Social Security Fund has raised concern over the delay by county governments and some state agencies to permit contributions by their employees. NSSF Chief Executive Officer David Koros said counties owe the fund 5 billion shillings which they have not paid for several months. Briefly, in Narok County, Narok gives 3.3 billion shillings to health in budget. The health sector will get the lion's share of Narok County's 15.7 billion budget for the financial year 2024-2025, approved by the County Assembly. In Kajiado County, conservation effort in Amboseli backed. The judiciary has affirmed its support for the conservation of the Amboseli ecosystem. This was said during a high-level two-day forum held at Kimana Town in Kajiado South Sub-County. Let's take a look at Homa Bay County. Attempts to recall me will fail, says Karoli. A defiant Suba South MP Karoli Omondi has dared the Orange Democratic Movement to recall him from Parliament, saying that such a move will fail miserably. The MP told his constituents not to be swayed by statements from the party led by Raila Odinga. That is beefed up for you on page 19. All right, let's move on and take a look at page 22. Bid to bar retiring governors from seeking legislative seats splits MPs. Aim of bill is to allow for accountability processes to continue without interference. Proposed law faces resistance on grounds that it will curtail political rights and freedoms. That story is beefed up for you on page 22. Again, for the property lovers, you have the DN2 article beefed up for you. Today, it's all about renovations to withstand extreme weather. Experts offer insights into making conditions in your house comfortable and safe during and after floods, strong winds, and other extremes associated with the weather. Get those insights on the DN2 article of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's take a look at business news. Why only banks posted growth in Q1 of 2024. All other sectors recorded slower expansion in the period. Lenders reap big from high interest rates charged on loans and increased borrowing. That story is beefed up for you on page 30. Briefly, in energy sector, raid seizes 26,000 cylinders at illegal refill sites. A nationwide clampdown on illegal liquefied petroleum gas refilling plants has recovered 26,000 cylinders in the past 3 years. The Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority said with 6,000 units having been returned to brand owners, cooking gas brand owners blame illegal refills for losses of 1.2 billion shillings yearly. All right, let's take a look at audit. Kenya Civil Aviation Authority has no documents for 10 billion shillings asset. Now, KCAA does not have official ownership documents for 10.7 billion worth of property, plant and equipment it claims to possess, raising concerns of the potential land grab and theft at the agency. That story is beefed up for you on page 30. Let's take a look at sporting action on the Daily Nation this morning. Batsman Mugabe stars in Kenya's win over Rwanda. This is all about cricket. Now, Zambia and Malawi are the other teams taking part in the Four Nations T20 competition. Hosts survive scare to secure 4 wickets win at Sikh Union Club. That story is beefed up for you on page 37. Let's take a look at page 38. Europe's big boys square off in quarters. Action resumes tomorrow and Saturday with Switzerland, Turkey looking to upset the established order. German, Spain aiming for a record extending 4th title as England, France fancy their chances. You want to catch up with those insights on page 38. Let's take a look at page 39. Humble Humwa all set for 2nd Olympic appearance. Queens forward tips hungry Shujaa to ruffle feathers in Paris. This is all about the rugby sevens. That story is beefed up for you on page 39 of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's take a look at the cover page. Ruto shoots down SRC's plan to raise top officials' salaries. Governors yesterday called for the withdrawal of the proposal. New pay structure was to be implemented in financial year 2024-2025 with effect from 1st of July. Now, also on the cover page, judiciary hit with hiring freeze as Treasury limits spending in austerity bid. Now, the Judicial Service Commission has suspended all pending recruitments, including the much-awaited hiring of 11 judges of the Court of Appeal, after the National Treasury restricted the judiciary's expenditure to 15% of the appropriated budget. Chief Justice Martha Koome said in a statement yesterday that the circular from Treasury limits expenditure to only critical and essential services. Now, with that story of judiciary hiring freeze, we come to an end of today's session of the Morning Momentum. Thank you so much for choosing to stay with the Morning Momentum and particularly the Younib TV. By extension, all gratitude goes to all those who made this broadcast a success, the Chief Controller Anifa Kavira, and behind the lens, Raphael Wangila. See you tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, do have a beautiful Thursday. I have been your host, Alfonsoh.